Should we make a start?
Yep.
So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for joining us today. This is the latest in our the Buynomics webinar series, and we do these about every 3 weeks. So if you like what we've heard today, we've got some more in historical ones that we've done via our website, and keep an eye out for the ones we do in the future. The session today, we're going to focus on regulation and revenue management. There's a few regulations that have happened and also are coming into play over the next few years. And in particular, the focus is today on the HFSS regulations in the UK, which come into play in October next year. So HFSS is the high fats, sugar and salt regulations, and it will represent challenges for a lot of brands, and it's going to be quite a big shift in UK grocery. And those challenges could be opportunities as well. So we're going to take you through a short webinar today to talk about some of those ideas about things that you need to prepare for and other opportunities that you can create from the regulations that come into place. So just in terms of who your hosts are today, joining me today is Dr. Ingo Reinhardt, who's the co-founder of Buynomics and the creator of our virtual shoppers method, which we'll touch on a bit later, whose experiences in 12 years, also veteran in pricing. And myself, I've got quite an extensive background in CPG data and insights, so this topic is quite close to my heart. So in roles such as iRide and Humby Profitero, and my role is to look after the commercial side of Buynomics. So should you wish to have a more deeper conversation about how we can help you overcome your challenges, not just in HFSS, but also looking at wider 4P insights, we can absolutely help you, and do feel free to get in touch with either Ingo or myself via LinkedIn or via the chat today. Sorry, I probably should say any questions anyone has, please do just type them in the chat and we'll happily answer them as we go through. So as a quick introduction to Buynomics, so we're 3 years in the making now. We're a SaaS company based out of Cologne, founded by Ingo and another colleague of ours, Sebastian, who identified there were some big opportunities for companies across a variety of different industries, but one of our focus areas being CPG, to revolutionize how they can make decisions across all of the revenue management levers, so price, product, promotion, and placement as well. And using this virtual shoppers, virtual customers, machine learning method, we are helping companies make these decisions much faster, more connected, so looking at the full 4P spectrum together, and also to a higher degree of accuracy using these the method that we've created. We're very much providing this across the globe and across a variety of different industries, and with CPG really being the focus area today that we will be concentrating on. So if we think about the challenges and the questions that people are looking to ask across revenue management, these have been the same challenges for 30 years or so. So it's all about what should my price be, not just on a single product, but across the whole portfolio to optimize purchasing across the range. What should the promotional strategy be, both in terms of frequency, deal depth? How can I then use it to get the most ROI out of my promotions, to get high share growth and generate profit through them, because a lot of promotions could be loss-making. What will happen if I change my product size? Do I have a PPA lever to pull where I can generate more profit having a slightly smaller pack size or launching larger pack sizes? And really, how do I differentiate the portfolio across different channels, different regions, ultimately with a view to helping my shoppers to buy more? So these are the same questions that we're asking now, and it's going to be the same questions we'll be asking next year when new regulations come into place. There's just going to be a slightly different spin on what those questions are and the answers that I need to derive from them. So really, we need to focus on those 4P areas to capitalize on any opportunities that we see going forward. So let's just touch upon very quickly. Some of you will know this already if this is a subject you've been working on so far, but just a very high level introduction to what are the HFSS guidelines. So essentially, the UK government has introduced a new scoring system, which broadly, and do go and have a look at the website if you want to understand the exact calculation, but takes the sum of the fat, sugar, and salt content in any one product, and then it minuses the amount of good ingredients, so protein, fiber, vegetables, fruits or nuts. And what we have is a scoring process that basically gives you a nutrient profile model, and any score above 4 for food, you'll be considered a less healthy product. Now, the categories that are impacted are quite a big list. So it's the unsurprising ones of products such as chocolate, sweets, biscuits, cakes, ice cream, the products you'd expect to see. There's also some kind of everyday food that you would have, such as pizzas, both chilled and frozen. A number of ready meals would be included within those sorts of categories as well. You've also got your breakfast cereals, which will be impacted. And also you have a number of beverage categories. So soft drinks, which has already had sugar tax back from 2018. So further regulation on soft drinks. And also like juice drinks and sweetened milk products as well. So this is going to mean that there's quite a significant impact to those categories. But what is that impact? And on the next slide, we will show you the regulations are having a number of different effects on these categories. So the products that fail or fail the scoring system or are considered to be, I think the official government term is less healthy. The big impact when you're in store will be that these new regulations will make it illegal for you to promote from a volume perspective or have a location-based promotion. And what do I mean by volume and location? So volume will mean any sort of promotion that encourages you to buy more than you normally would. So multi-buy promotions such as buy one, get one free, any sort of round pound promotions such as 2 for £2, or anything like 25% extra free on the product. The location-based promotions are where you have promotions on like a checkout or have it at a gondola end, so the end of an aisle or promotional aisle, which means that it is less out of sight for a lot of shoppers. So it really will impact the impulse occasion that you will see from having these off-shelf promotions. Now, there are some exemptions, and I think this is quite important when we think about strategy because of the portfolio mix you can have in different stores. So the exemptions are, and I do suggest go and have a look at the government website to get the full list of how this works, but at a summary level, if you have 50 employees or less, or the store format is below 2,000 square foot, also if it's a specialist retailer that only sells that type of product. So in the UK, we have the likes of Hotel Chocolat, they'll just sell chocolate products, so they're exempt for this sort of regulation. Now, the other regulation, which we're not going to talk about in too much detail today, is the advertising side of things. So any promotion, any sort of media activity from online or TV will not be allowed on less healthy products before 9 o'clock. So again, quite a big impact. In terms of what we're going to focus on today, it's really going to be the first point. So we're going to be looking at the new regulations around volume and location promotions, because I think that's the area in which in-store will be affected the most. And this is where we'd like to focus our attention on today. So next slide, please, Ingo. Now, we've done a piece of analysis with asking shoppers about their purchasing behaviors or their attitudes towards purchasing certain products that are impacted by HFSS regulations, and whether they are more likely to purchase these products based on impulse. So they hadn't originally intended on purchasing it. And I don't think this should necessarily be a surprise to a lot of people. So the snacking categories that are impacted are the ones which shoppers say, I didn't intend on purchasing it. I bought it because it was on a gondola end or a promotional aisle. These are very expandable categories. The more you have these at home, the more you're likely to eat them. So therefore, there is a benefit of doing off-shelf promotions, a volume promotion as well. So buy one, get one free or 2 for £2 to encourage that extra consumption behavior. If we look at the other end of the spectrum, the categories in which shoppers say they are less likely to purchase on impulse, the likes of cereals and cereal bars, they'll have a slightly less effect or be less impacted by these new regulations. They'll definitely be impacted in different ways, but we don't necessarily expect people to buy products on an end and consume a huge amount more cereal than they would versus, let's say, chocolate, confectionery and chocolate bars. People still have breakfast cereals on their everyday shopping list. it's still a regular consumption product. So therefore, it will be impacted in different ways. Brands will be impacted. Certain brands will be impacted more than others that increase a lot of their sales for off-shelf promo, but it will be less impacted. You've also got yogurts here, which is a lower index versus the rest. They'll have their own problems. There's a lot of brands within yogurts that will have a certain type of promotional mechanic that really encourages multi-buy. So quite a frequent multi-buy of, let's say, 7 yogurts for £3. It's a multi-buy promotion and therefore will be impacted by it. They may be impacted less by off-shelf. However, these multi-buy promotions may have a significant impact on the fact that people will only buy 2 rather than buy 5. So each of these categories will have different issues. So each of these CPGs that has brands within these categories will need a different strategy for each of these categories that exist. So I'm going to hand over to Ingo now, and he can talk through some of our thoughts on how you might approach these next few months for you.
Thanks, David, and also warm welcome from my side, and an apology from the beginning. I had some issues with my computer. That's why we were like half a minute late. And I also have one reminder. If you have any questions that you think we can answer, then please put them in the comments or in the chats, and we'll have time at the end to answer them. If there are too many of them, we will answer the remaining ones via email. So please let us know if you have any specific questions. So I think, and David already discussed this, I think that the primary effect, and for us, the key question is, so we have this new regulation, and we need to deal with it, and we need to understand how it affects revenue management. And I think that the primary effect is, of course, a reduction in sales, particularly in sales that are running through various types of promotions that are will become unavailable in the future. But after that, there are also a wide range of secondary effects that highlight the actual complexity of the situation we're dealing with. And I think what is really going on right now is that this new regulation doesn't just reduce the ability to run certain promotions and with that reduce sales volumes, but it will in the end lead to a new equilibrium in the industry. Equilibrium means a new, not steady state, but a focal point of how the different actors involved, manufacturers, retailers, will work with the different levers that they have, being pricing, being the product portfolio, the promotions that are still available, and also the trade terms, so the split of benefits between manufacturers and retailers. So here are just some of these effects that we are expecting based on our experience. So with the new regulation, I think one of the secondary effects is that more budgets that have previously gone into promotions will now be available for other activities, and these can be spent maybe on lower prices, different products, different other activities that will be tested. I think we will be seeing some, particularly in the beginning, some variation in things that will be tried out, and after a while the industry will find those new measures that are most effective in the new world. Another effect, I think, is that some promotional real estate, for example, at the end of the aisles, will become available maybe for other categories that are not affected by the new regulations. And another effect is what the way promotions work is actually that they allow companies to differentiate their offer over time. So they have weeks with higher, that is regular prices, and they have weeks with lower, that is promotional prices. So they differentiate their offer over time. And this ability to differentiate your offer over time will be limited to some extent. And as a reaction to that, we will expect more differentiation across other categories. For example, wider variation of the product range at the same time. So the way companies will work with small packs versus large packs, for example. So then we expect more variation in the price of small packs and large packs, maybe an increase in the size of large packs and so on. But all of this will be very industry specific, as we've seen already in David's analysis on the previous slide, that different categories are affected very differently from the new regulation, for example, based on the share of impulse purchases. I think also an effect will be that retailers will lose some of the trade spend that currently still goes into promotions, and they will look for other ways, so that there might be some or still already going on some renegotiation of trade terms, and these are also interesting for manufacturers, of course, when it comes to working or splitting between discounts and bonuses, so to also have a lever on higher revenues via a change in the bonus scheme, for example. So many things are going on, and I think the overall challenge is for companies to deal with the complexity of the change, going from the current equilibrium that has been tried and tested over many years to a new equilibrium with a different set of actions that can be played and different levers that can be pulled to differentiate the offer. And this requires, in our understanding, the way we see the situation, companies to have the ability to understand how these changes will affect them, and also how to best respond to these changes. That means we expect, from our point of view, I think there are 4 steps important for dealing with the situation. I think the starting point, it has to be a good understanding of how the regulation, the changes in the regulation will affect the own offer, the profitability, sales, and so on. So specifically, what happens if you're a company that's working with, for example, 2-for-1 promotions and now can't do that anymore? What does it mean? Do you lose sales? Do you lose profit? Do you lose revenue? And so on. The second step has to be identifying opportunities to properly react to these changes as a starting point, then also having an understanding, because your competitors will be doing the same, of what makes sense for your competitors, also getting an understanding of how your competitors will most likely react, considering how they have made changes in the past, for example, and then putting this into a coherent strategy and the ability to course correct whenever competitors do something unexpected, or you're learning from trying out alternative promotions or offers to see what works and what doesn't work. And I think the key point here is having a quick and agile understanding of the situation, and being able to quickly assess and precisely assess how the regulations affect you and how to properly respond to that. And this we want to show in a simple example. For that, let me change my screen. David, do you see my browser?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. So to highlight the situation, let's look at a very simple example. So we have a model industry where we're selling cereal bars. So it's a category that's affected by the new regulation. Just to give you an understanding, so this is, and we're using our solution to highlight this the case. So we have a product offer. We have different brands of cereals. We have a bunch of value drivers, the number of cereals. We have different flavors, health claims, high fiber, vitamin D, and so on. and we have a number of different promotions. And what we're looking at right now is a change in these promotions. So we have a simplified market. So we're selling these 4 fiber bars with 4 bars, 5 and 6. So like a small, medium and large pack. We have 2 competitor products, all with different health claims, different flavors and so on. So there's some variation in the industry, but we're essentially aiming for the same customers. And right now we are working here with a 2-for-1 promotion. And when we look at what that means, we see that in this case, we have these sales here we're selling. So these are weekly sales in a week where we're running a promotion and competitors are not running a promotion. And we see that we're selling these units. We can see that when we, for example, change the price of a product, increase price 11%, we lose 7% units. So our elasticity is 0.6, so just below -1. This is the current situation in the market. And then the question is, what happens if we go from a 2-for-1 promotion to an alternative, for example, 50% discount, which will also be allowed after the promotion. And I've already prepared this case. So this is our status quo, where we are running the 2-for-1 promotions, and we see in this case the 6-pack is the most the product with the largest sales. And when we go from the 2-for-1 to a 50% discount, in this case, and this isn't a real example, but it's based on a real example. So the general dynamics are based on real data. We see here that we are losing sales, losing revenue, and we're also losing profit in this case. So we go from a profit of about 55,000 to 49,000. So that's about 10%, a little over 10% drop. And the second question, so this is if the competitors remain the same. And the other question is, what would happen if we if our competitors in this case also reduce the price, and then we see that we're losing further sales because our competitor reduced their price, and we're seeing here that we're losing market share. So the different pink types, these are our competitors. They have reduced their price, and we see now that in this situation where we had to change our promotion, competitors change price, we're losing overall profits. And this means this is in this specific case, it's a very dangerous situation, and there are other things. And looking at the time, we won't look at these right now in detail. There may be other options. So changing some of the products, go maybe from a 6-pack to a 8 or 10-pack, that can be analyzed. And this is something that makes a lot of sense to look at when you're dealing with these situations. So not just looking at the immediate promotion effects, but looking for alternatives. And for example, with this solution, that's very straightforward and simple to do when you want to understand how to best react to these changes in the market. Having said that, I will hand back to David, and I'll go back to the presentation. You see the presentation?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I was on mute. Just say, I think I've had someone raise their hand. Do feel free to send us a question on the chat. I don't think we can actually hand over the microphone, so do send it through, and we'll answer the questions at the end. So I think this is a good case study on what happened when we previously had some regulations that come into place. Now, back in 2018, we had the sugar tax on soft drinks in the UK. Now, you could argue that the soft drinks manufacturers are now better prepared for the future regulation that we have that's coming into place next year. But just as a bit of a background, we're going to introduce a kind of a minimum price per amount of sugar for each of the soft drinks brands that were sold. And really, these brands had three options. So they could increase price to maintain margins. They could reformulate products to have less sugar in them. Or they could really just do nothing to a certain extent. Now, some of these brands did already have low or no sugar offerings. So, for example, you have Coke had Diet Coke, and they were starting to launch Coke Zero as part of this. Pepsi have Pepsi Max. So really, when we look at what happened, so if we look at some of the data afterwards, some of the data that was available via the grocer, it was Nielsen data that was looking at data in 2019, comparing 2018 when the regulations come into place. Actually, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, the brands as opposed to the companies, were the two fastest growing brands in that year in terms of value sales increase. And this was coming out of regulation. And what they did, they increased their prices accordingly. And the benefit to them was they also increased the price of the whole portfolio. So they were increasing the amount of margins that they were making off of their no sugar variants. So they're really well placed to use the portfolio and price levers to really capitalize on those growths. There were other examples where there was reformulation going on. So we saw a slight decline in the likes of Ribena, where they had lower sugar variants. And also there was quite a bit of outrage at the time with Lucozade Energy. It was quite popular amongst athletes, and especially with the likes of diabetics who would want a high sugar energy product. Lucozade was always glucose heavy, and it was a really important proposition for them. And these brands actually saw some decline. We've also called out AG Bar on here. We've maybe to a certain extent unfairly in terms of their reformulation, because their Iron Brew brand actually did grow in the next period. But there was public outrage. For anyone who's from Scotland on the phone will know that it's a big national brand there. And they did see some increase in sales despite the media uproar about the reformulation of the higher sugar variant. However, across the wider portfolio, across 2 years, some of the communications coming across AG Bar talks about the reformulations having an impact on some of their other products like Rubicon and some of their energy drinks as well. So be careful is what I'm saying. There's opportunities here to grow, and you need to make sure that you're pulling the right lever. So should it be reformulation, which is a bit more difficult across some food products? Should it be genuine NPD that you launch, which we're noticing happening in some cases with the likes of Dr. Oetker releasing a new healthier pizza? Should that be the lever you pull? Or actually, should it be a case of using the price and promo type levers to make those decisions? Now, just on the next slide, we actually have a summary of that. So there are different things that you can pull, both in terms of price promo, also across product, and then distribution as well. So have a think about whether it's a case of running more aggressive promotions. Is it about just switching from 2 for 1 to 50% off? Is it a case of pulling the price lever and putting more investment on having a cheaper base price? Or alternatively, having a higher base price, but discounting even deeper to make the promotion seem more attractive to your buyers? There's the promotional strategy mix. So I've called this out in distribution as well. So certain stores are not going to have the same challenges and can have certain promotions and both from a volume perspective and a location perspective. So there's different mix that you can start to look at. So have a think about what the best strategy is for those different channels as well. From a product perspective, I've already touched upon, there's different things you can do in terms of reformulation, which is always risky. You've got line extensions, so different pack sizes that can play a part, especially in terms of the volume-based the promotional mechanics. And then you've got this true innovation. So where regulation comes in, can tend to drive a lot more increase in true innovation. So we expect to see quite a lot of these new innovations happening that are more healthy products. And make sure that you've got the right assortment mix, so the right products in store, in the right channel, for the right occasion. So you've got these levers to pull, or you could do nothing and see what happens. and I strongly suggest that you do something. But it's all about measuring. And Ingo's kindly gone through the demo of how a platform like Buynomics can work to show you what the impact of any of these would be, so that you can model the outcome in advance of actually going ahead and really pulling the lever and potentially making the right or the wrong decision. So thank you very much for your time, and we will go to any questions that you have now. So
yeah, I think I must apologize again. So I think my demo took a bit too long. So anyone who wants to leave, I think we're through with the webinar, but we will still answer the questions that you send us. Please, if you have more, then send them. We will certainly answer them now or later by email. And let's get right to it. So the first question, David, is for you. Hi, David. I was wondering whether users should search for the solution or if the tool provides the opportunity to say, for instance, show me scenarios where I do not lose, for example, more than 5% revenue.
Yes. Our platform gives you the ability to run an infinite amount of scenarios. So with that in mind, there could be an infinite amount of results that would give you the opportunities to where you do not lose, for example, more than 5% of revenue, because there's different ways that you can mix the product and it can prove to be a large amount. What we do have is some features within the tool that I'd be happy to take you through if you'd like to have a more detailed demo, where we can actually show you how you can press certain buttons that will make some recommendations of the optimum pricing for, or the optimum for price pro for the optimum revenue or profit you can get to by pulling the price lever. And you can also then look at different mix, such as different promotions, and then also understanding what the optimum range should be as well.
And just to add, so it might be that there is no solution where you only lose 5% in revenue. But if the solution exists, they are shown. The second one I can answer myself. So the second question we have is, what if the whole competitive landscape moves to EDLP, so that's everyday low price? Do you see a risk of intensifying price war? Is there a way to simulate that scenario? Yeah, so the solution can simulate the scenario where everyone goes to everyday low price, for example. So you can simulate any change, not just price, but also products that you make. And you can also make assumptions about what your competitors do, and you can base that assumption on the past behavior of these competitors. Building on what I said on one slide before is the way promotions work right now is that they allow companies to differentiate over time. So they have periods where they have a high price and a low price, and typically these are somewhat aligned between competitors so that they don't have promotions together, but one company has a promotion and then the next and so on. And this allows companies to, in a sense, evade competition to some extent and overall be more profitable than in a world where everyone has the same price all the time. That's something you see across industries, and maybe a reaction to that makes sense is to work with different product sizes and sort of organize around different having different product sizes. So one has 10 pack in the example above, and the other has a 15 pack and so on. So there's definitely a danger in everyone moving to everyday low price. The second question, I think that's for you, David. It's on the example that you had previously with Coke and Pepsi. Did Coke and Pepsi increase prices beyond repassing the tax to consumers?
Good question. I actually don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but it is a very good question. I will try and follow up with you afterwards and see if I can get you the answer to that. I broadly think it was broadly in line, because they both increased by very similar amounts. So I wouldn't be surprised if they used that number as the target. So they maintained a margin on the full sugar variants, but then increased the margin on their zero sugar ones at the same time.
Final question. So what kind of data do you need to set up your model? So we can work with all kinds of data that are typically used in pricing. The one that we use most often are sellout data by channel, for example, where we use the data to assess and measure how preferences are distributed within the population. So how much are people willing to pay for different brands, for different pack sizes, for different flavors, and so on. And we read these out from historical data and use them to parameterize the model. And we typically show, and we showed this across a large number of examples, that we have a very high precision with our models and our predictions. But we can also use other types of data. For example, we can work with panel data, conjoint studies, and we can also use different data sources and integrate them to and this actually assess how good different inputs are, and then weigh them accordingly to get the best model based on the data that are available. Cool. If you have further questions, we're happy to answer these by emails, but I see we're already a bit over the time. So David, you want to go to the next?
Yes. So yeah, as Ingo says, thank you everyone for attending. We are looking at the next webinar, which is on the 8th of October, which is the pricing KPIs, what to measure. So we've also got, following the series will be innovation disruption in CPG, and then how to set up and succeed in your pricing project. If you've got any suggestions of things you'd like us to refer to, or topics of conversations that you'd like us to have within our webinar series, drop us a line, let us know, and we'll happily consider it for the future. And again, thank you for your time. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Cheers.